Mr. LaRue Fitch, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing awesome. I want to thank you for taking time out of your, I'm sure it's a busy Saturday for you, especially when it's such a beautiful day here in Chicago, right?
Absolutely. It's nice out there today.
So I do appreciate it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my show called Word for Word. We talk to professionals, business professionals, and we focus on, those who have a great story to tell. And so we talk about business, we talk about entrepreneurship, but then we also talk about this major campaign that I'm a part of right now called How Money Works. So our mission is to eradicate financial illiteracy. But within all of that, I love talking to people who are trying to change the world in whatever way they can. And so when I came across your page on Facebook, I said, this is a brother that I have to talk to. So as an educator or former educator, I want you to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you've done. And I've got some questions for you, but I really want the audience to get to know who you are and talk about your beginnings in education for us.
Absolutely. But first, before I get started, I want to thank you for this amazing opportunity. My name is LaRue Fitch, educational consultant, adjunct professor, as well as a teacher leader here within the Chicagoland area. This is my 14th year in education. And I say that with, a sense of, wow, I can't believe I lasted this long, but really exciting times. I got into the field of education because I wanted to inspire. I wanted to have a positive impact. And also, I wanted to address some of the inequities and injustices that are currently happening with our Black students when we talk about on track, off track, opportunity gaps, achievement gaps. So I wanted to be an inspiration, a mentor from my upbringing that I received. I'm from Kankakee, Illinois, and I've found my way here in Chicago, right, working for Chicago Public Schools. And that's been a fantastic journey. As a educator, I found myself as a teacher lead, instructional lead, Then I went to as an assistant principal, then a resident principal for Chicago Public Schools. Then I became a principal down in my hometown of Kankakee, Illinois. And believe it or not, I went back into the classroom because I felt that there was a lot of information that I still needed to learn. And I felt like I didn't, end the journey like I wanted to as a classroom leader. And sometimes, Mr. Brayford, we have to go back and reset to kind of reflect to see where we want to go. So that was my idea, was to go back to kind of reset and reflect and work on other projects. As I mentioned, educational consultant, supporting schools nationwide, as well as an adjunct professor here at National Louis University, where I help teacher candidates and build their capacity and get them equipped and ready for that classroom culture climate, as well as curriculum and instruction.
Okay, cool. So, and I smiled when you said Kankakee because one of my old college roommates was from the Keys.
Oh yeah.
And so I've been in that area before.
Yeah.
I want to go back. Did you ever see yourself, number one, get into education, but then number two, becoming a principal?
Mhm.
Did you ever think that was going to happen?
No, neither one of those. I never thought I would see myself as a teacher. Believe it or not, I was inspired by one of my mentors at St. Xavier University. That's where I graduated from. And he, kind of guided me in a way to becoming a teacher. And during that time, the early 2000, mid 2000, it seems like it was thriving. We wanted to see more Black men, the presence of Black men in education. And it was something that was more appealing at that moment. But again, I never saw myself as a teacher. I started off as a fourth grade teacher, but then I started to see the relationships I was able to establish with students and families, and the way that the students, especially Black boys, were receptive to me. So that inspired me to jump out there and say, listen, let me go try to obtain a master's degree and become a principal. Now, me being a principal was never in the stretch of my imagination. I used to sit in the principal's office for other reasons as a kid, right? But I wanted to change that channel. I wanted to turn those tables, as they say, and become a principal. And I can honestly and more transparently, as a transparent person here, speak to you and your audience, sir, by explaining that when I wanted to become a principal, it was more for, chasing that title, having that sense of, listen, I want to be the man. And sometimes, especially as Black men, we find ourselves in a position where we are title chasing opposed to just getting into fields that are more passionate, that we can see ourselves, building and growing and evolving. And that was my rationale. And I had to change of heart after a while. And I said, listen, let me go back into the classroom to, kind of refine my skills. And I still, at this moment, I still have that itch to getting back into leadership. However, just to be transparent, there's just something about being in there in the trenches with kids, students, having that opportunity to really coach and develop them in the right way, and just to inspire them to be in their very best. In a lot of cases, a lot of our students, especially our Black boys, they don't have any mentors. They don't have any fathers at home, so I can, I sometimes feel myself serving in that capacity in a way as a mentor or as a father-like figure to those children that desperately need it here in the city of Chicago.
Absolutely. And, when you just said about being in the principal's office, I spent a lot of time there myself.
Yeah.
And I would say it got to the point where the principal got tired of disciplining me, and we would just sit and have a conversation.
Yeah.
And because those things were missing, right? Now, I want to frame this conversation the right way, because I was an adjunct for 17 years. And then over the last 4 years, I went into the classroom at a preschool academy. So I was teaching school-age kids from 5 to 12. Total different shift. And so I can definitely, it wasn't until then, it wasn't really until the pandemic where I really learned to appreciate what teachers do and what they have to go through on a day-to-day basis, but even more so, how it affects our young Black and brown boys and girls. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it is so important to have Black men as teachers in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to have representation in the classroom. We know statistically that 80% of our teachers are white women that are teaching Black students, right? And sometimes there's a cultural disconnect where you can't relate to the students because there's no identity, no personality, no relationships being established because you just don't know those students. They need to see us in the classroom opposed to just seeing us dribble a basketball, running a football, rapping lyrics, things of that nature. They need to see us in a capacity where we're actually giving back to the community. We're building capacity, we're working, we're inspiring, seeing us in a positive light. And I'm gonna stretch it even further for you today. They need to see us outside of just being disciplinarian deans, gym PE teachers, right? Things of that nature. They need to see us as scientists, mathematicians. They need to see us as writers, readers. They have to see us in these types of spaces because what society portrays a Black man is not what we currently see in the field of education. So our students reflect what they're exposed to. So I'm always saying exposure is the key to success. So if we expect them to be in a position to be a successful or to be able to advance and matriculate to the next level based on people that look like them, we need to see more Black men in those fields that can relate to those students in which we serve.
So all those pieces that you just mentioned, what do you think is going to take for example, I was reading some statistics earlier and it said that only 2% of teachers in the classroom are Black men, only 2%. So what do you think it's going to take for all those different specialists, if you will, to come into the classroom and start teaching our kids? And I know originally, a lot of Black men didn't teach because the money wasn't right. I can go do something else. I may not love it as much, but I can make twice as much money. What do you think it's going to take for that to happen?
I was going to go there. Financial, you definitely want to be back in with the financial opportunity. And I wrote this in my book. We have to attract our youth at the younger stages, right? Me personally, I feel that as an adjunct, as a teacher, we have to go into the high schools and build this pipeline right now, right, to get them prepared. Because a lot of our students, they seem like they chase their dreams at the collegiate level or the high school level when it comes to sports and activities and things of that nature. However, we need to make education a forefront and very important because we have some articulate Black men out there that are definitely advocates for what's happening in our society that can, speak to our youth. However, we have to make sure we build a partnership with our high schools, some sort of mentoring program where we can kind of develop them and then they can transition to, some sort of licensure program, some sort of four-year institution that focuses on education because we are in a position to inspire. I never thought about being anything else after I got into the classroom. I said, wow, this is great. So if I can find young youth out there with that same type of open-mindedness to say, listen, I don't know what I want to be, but I will give this a try because I do display this growth mindset. I can show them the skill sets. I can show them how we all evolved from Africa. I can show them how we're articulate with information. I can show them how we are definitely advocates when it comes to social unrest issues, how we have a voice, how we are threatened because if we're intelligent, that's a fear to a lot of people in our society. So using our voice, our vernacular in a way to show that, listen, we can be the future. We can definitely make sure that we inspire the future moving forward. So me, it's creating that pipeline from high school to collegiate, because if you get them in high school, now you can kind of mold and develop them so they can definitely see an interest in becoming a teacher.
Well, you basically answered my next question. Do you think that Black students learn better from Black teachers?
Yes, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Currently, right now, within my PhD program, I'm studying culturally relevant pedagogy under the researcher of Dr. Gloria Lansing Billings, and she highlights 3 areas that we definitely need to make sure we encourage our Black men, our Black youth, when it comes to teaching and learning. She talks about being culturally competent. A lot of us are not culturally competent, a lot of us, right? And that even stems down to academic language versus, home language and how you can teach our students how to code switch. She also talks about social political awareness and being a voice in a classroom and having students advocate for what is wrong. All you have to do It sparked their curiosity, and they'll ask questions. And when you get them to ask questions, it's over. Like it's a wrap, right? And they can be able to seek to understand, they can be able to research information. And last importantly, she talks about academic achievement and not just saying you have a student. I teach sixth grade currently right now, and a lot of my students are not what we deem as being on grade level. So we scaffold information or we differentiate their work. But she's saying, no, expose them to higher order text, modify, accommodate, get them to understand the material. Because if you do look at data, if you do look at that child in the classroom and you're giving them achievement level work and they're three, four grade levels behind, they're not going to get to the grade level they're expected to, because all you're doing is giving them achievement level work. So she's saying academic achievement is a must, but we have to scaffold information and make sure it's meaningful and purposeful through Socratic seminar, through information that they can make connections to. So things that are culturally relevant. We have to make sure that happens in order to save our youth, especially our Black children out there.
Now, you just said that you're currently teaching sixth grade. And so when I was teaching school age, my youngest student was 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the point, and I don't want to say too late, but where you definitely know that if we don't do something right away, that this child could be lost? Is there a point? Is there an age? What do you think that point might be where, my God, this child, I don't know what we can do for this child because they're so far behind?
Yeah, absolutely. I would make that personal connection. I do have a 6-year-old, and I'm noticing that it starts at home with a lot of these situations, right? My son, he's all into this game and design. He loves YouTube. But in a lot of cases, the YouTube videos that he's watching are narrated by people that don't look like us. So already he has images in his head. So it's important that mom and I have this collaborative relationship where we can put them in a school that's more diverse, that's more culturally aware of things that's culturally woke to stuff that's happening in our society. So my son is successful. It starts at a young age where identity is key, right? And we have to be able to see ourselves in the curriculum. So we have a couple things that's going against us, especially with the youth that age. You have teachers that don't look like our kids. You have students that's not being represented in the curriculum, and there's no cultural connection to the material that's being taught. That's a huge problem. So what I deem as important is making sure that identity is represented, relationships are established, and you have teachers that look like the students in which they're servicing, because that makes them feel more comfortable and you can make those connections. At a young age, I have seen it. I'm sixth grade. I can't even imagine the capacity you were working in at that time, but I'm telling you, I see it even with the kindergartners and first graders, where there's a disconnection when it comes to cultural identity in the classroom, and it's at a very, very young age. So it's us to create a system and a structure as classroom teachers, as building leaders, to ensure that is represented in our schools.
Okay, good. Now, since we know that we as Black men are not represented enough in the classroom, how can we help our Black and brown students outside of the classroom? You just mentioned personally, it starts at home. However, what are some other ways or areas where we could concentrate and help our Black and brown students?
Yes. We have to get more involved. I do a lot of work for my fraternity, and we get more involved into community supports, community services. We have to make sure that we link up with nonprofit organizations, making sure we do utilize our resources in our neighborhoods to get more involved outside of the building, building relationships with churches, with libraries, with grocery stores, with things of that nature, to get those individuals interested and invested into the lives of the youth. I'm noticing this on the south side of Chicago, that it's difficult because there's no connection outside the building, right? So a lot of our students are going to local grocery stores that are providing them services from people that don't look like them. They're going to gas stations from people that don't look like them. The candy stores from people that don't look like them. So that's a huge problem. So it's us as a unit, as a society, as a culture, a Black culture, to get more invested into our community, take back our community, and ensure that we buy Black, invest in Black, and support our youth, because at the end of the day, it takes us. These are our babies, right? And I'm all for, supporting and welcoming all different races and creeds. However, I have a sense of urgency at this moment for our Black race, because it takes us to invest in our babies and to advocate for them, because they are the future. So if we want to see change, we have to be the change for them.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to ask you a personal question, and you can, I don't care which level it is,
Mhm.
who was your favorite teacher and why? And it could be on any level.
Absolutely. Mr. Holman, right? Mr. Holman was my favorite teacher. He was my seventh grade junior high teacher down in Kankakee, Illinois. And the reason he was my favorite teacher is because was the first male teacher, the first Black male teacher that I have ever had. And he also held me accountable. And it was just something about his swag in the classroom. He's very charismatic, the way that he taught. And I said, I want to be like this guy. I don't know what he's doing, but I want to be like this guy. So I was inspired just by everything he was doing in the classroom. He was my favorite teacher by far.
All right, cool.
Mhm.
What effect do you think race has on education?
Um, Race, the effect that race has on education is very, very serious. We know that a lot of our Black youth are still in the starting blocks, right? While a lot of the other our white counterparts are definitely running around the track and they're lapping us, because there's cultural disconnections to the material. We don't see a value in some cases, right? We talk about holding each other accountable, and I think that's very important for the Black culture, that we have to hold each other accountable. We need that system in place, as well as you have to understand that racism is the issue. And when I say racism, I'm not talking about a person. I'm talking about a system, because racism is a system, and I believe that the system of education has definitely highlighted the racist issues that are currently happening. It's keeping people employed, it's keeping our kids slow. And at the end of the day, it's a favor to society for our kids to be uneducated. I want to say that again. It is a favor and a privilege in society for our Black men, our Black young ladies, to be uneducated. It keeps people employed and it keeps people happy. So yes, racism is definitely key, and it is definitely shaking education. And we need to be marching and screaming and putting legislators in place, like the South is doing when it comes to critical race theory. We need to be doing that because our Black youth have led. They have definitely graduated to the top tier when it comes to being ignorant in education, and it's time that we stop this madness.
And I would also add that it keeps the uneducated dependent upon the system.
That's great.
And I think that's, and like when we talk about our financial literacy campaign, when you don't know how money works, it makes you dependent upon the system,
Right.
whether it's, student loan debt, whether it's food stamps, whether it's unemployment, whatever it is, it keeps you dependent upon the system because
Mhm.
you cannot find a way to get out of the hole that you're in.
Yeah.
This is good stuff.
Yeah.
If you could change the educational system, this is your wish list. If you could change the educational system, what would you do?
Yes. Um, I will, if I can change the educational system from LaRue Fitch, this is my philosophy. It has nothing to do with my current employer, or anything like that. I would definitely want to see equitable opportunities for our students with resources, just like every other race out there. And I would love to see a segregation plan in place for our youth to be taught by Black people through a curriculum. I think that's the route that's happening, but the problem that you foresee in that route is that there is no equitable access for that. That supports us, our youth, because now you can really get into the nuts and cranes of everything that's happening in education. You can focus on financial literacy, because a lot of our youth are not financially literate when it comes to that aspect. But then more importantly, our students feel a sense of connection from people that are taught by them. So I would love to see many HBCUs out there that reflect our students that are taught by our people. Because at the end of the day, I believe when you look at the grassroots of a lot of problems, there's a disconnect, and it's a privilege for our youth to be uneducated. And to me, I think there's there are underlying conspiracies of why there's 80% of white teachers and there's only 2% of black men out there. So I would love to make sure our youth are taught by our people with like many HBCUs across the country, but with equitable and fair opportunities when you talk about resources being distributed to our people.
Right. I like the word conspiracy, the way you just use it. I want to say hello to Aisha Saxon, who's watching the show. She checks out the interviews quite often. So I want to say hello to her. Um, now, we can talk about the school system. We can talk about the lack of black men in the classroom. But again, you mentioned that it starts at home. What would be some advice you would give to parents? Because a lot of times, and even when I was at the preschool academy, parents would come to me and ask me, well, how come my child does not know this? And, at some point, you want to really tell them what you're thinking, but you can't always do that. So what would be some advice you would give to parents on how to jumpstart your child's education?
Right. I would say to parents to become involved, right? If there's any involvement opportunities for parent volunteers in the building, please take advantage of those services. Getting, ask questions, understanding the curriculum. Don't just look at grades as a way of saying my child got a C, so he's doing better. But really become invested and have an open mindset when it comes to constructive criticism, when it comes to actually somebody impacting your child socially and academically in a positive way, and being open to that. Time again, a lot of our parents feel there's a disconnect between them and the school, and they only come up there during the times of parent-teacher conferences, report cards, and things of that nature. Or if you said something slick to their child, they want to come up there and redirect you. So we need to make sure that our parents are knowledgeable that this is a partnership through collaboration. It's not the school and then you and the youth, and you're only showing up here for picture day and field trips. But we want to make sure that you're invested. So having a parent university where you can build skill sets within the parents, because I'm always saying just because you can have a child does not make you a parent. So we need to build our parent skill sets so they know how to socially understand information. They understand the academic components, but it starts with us at the school. We have to be able to open up that collaboration with our families to get them invested into what's going on, so the parents don't feel like there's a disconnect or you're picking on my child. But I do want our parents to become more involved into what's going on educationally, because it's very important for their child's sake.
All right, good stuff. So we've talked about your background a little bit. We talked about some different challenges with the lack of black men in the classroom. I saw you first on Facebook in the Black Educators Group.
Yeah.
Give me some positives about the black men in that group, from your standpoint, because we definitely want to shine the light on those who are in the classroom every day, who are doing everything that they can do to help lay that foundation of education for our black and brown children. So talk about that group a little bit, some good experiences that you could share with the people that are watching.
Yes, let me put this plug out there. We actually are on our conference this weekend, so please go to blackeducatorsrock.org to become a member so you can participate in our virtual conference that's happening this week. We have some phenomenal individuals that are consultants in our group that's led by our fearless leader, Dr. Melissa Chester. For Black Educators Rock, she's phenomenal. We have Dr. Chika Akua out there that's doing some great work down there in the Atlanta area. He has this culturally relevant resource material that's out there that inspires our schools, our districts across the country. I'm sure you've heard of Principal Kafele, which is a phenomenal leader. He's part of our global consulting firm, as well as our educational group. As well as, we have Dr. Robert Jackson. We have, some great work, man. I mean, you have some phenomenal individuals out there that's doing some great dynamic work when you talk about culture. Dr. Chika Akua, curriculum, Dr. Sean Hurt out of Inkster Prep in Detroit, Michigan area. And when you're just talking about just that whole instructional part, which I find myself being, an instructional leader and supporting and building teachers' capacity. This group has been dynamic. It has inspired me. I joined the group in 2018, and after going to the conference in Jacksonville, Florida, I said, listen, I need to go ahead and start writing a book. I need to become more invested into this because these guys are they're out there consulting and doing the work. But what makes it more dynamic, sir, is that when we have our conversations within our conference and our workshops, we love everybody that's teachers, but it feels great when you're inspiring and talking to people that look like us. It's like a family reunion that's out there because we see on the news what's happening across the country with some of the unrest issues and people at the board meetings and screaming this rhetoric. However, we lose sight that we do still have about percent of our Black women out there that's in the classrooms, right? And they feel kind of conflicted and confused of what's going on. So we owe them this opportunity, this space. So just to hear their feedback, to say, they're like, thank you so much. We really appreciated this because we don't know what's going on. A lot of them, sir, are muzzled down there in the state of Florida, down there in Texas. They can't teach certain things. So this space of Black Educators Rocks allows them this opportunity to definitely code switch, finesse it, however you want to put it, but keep them inspired and keep them going back into the classrooms.
That's good stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can never tell. Like, there are some days when you say social media it should not be allowed in your life, but then there are those days when you catch those great stories and those great groups of people that are really doing some good things. Yeah. And so now we're going to switch gears a little bit. And I think this part of the show is extremely fun because it's an opportunity to get to know the guests on a different level.
Absolutely.
And so the company that I represent is called How Money Works. And our goal is to eradicate financial illiteracy. And so one of our initiatives is called Teach It Forward. And basically the goal is to educate 10,000 high school students on how money works. And so I'm going to put some slides on the screen, and I want to just get your feedback on what you see and what you hear. And then I'm going to ask you some questions as well.
Gotcha. Absolutely.
So let's go into, where's it at? All right. So let me go back. Hold on just a second. Now, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So our plan is we have a book called How Money Works. And the plan is to put that book into educators' hands so they can get educated and then they could filter the information to their students. So from a financial literacy standpoint, do you feel that teachers are failing their students?
Yes, teachers are indirectly failing their students. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, and I don't know if you knew this or not, but only 21 states require a course on financial literacy in high school. Were you aware of that?
I was not aware of that.
And would you be shocked to know that Illinois is not one of those 21 states?
That doesn't surprise me. That part doesn't surprise me. That part doesn't. We don't hear about financial literacy until it's like summer camp or summer bridge or summer school. Then they want to implement some financial literacy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, only 40% of students from those states actually take the course. So it's not a requirement to graduate, but it is implemented in high school. So I don't have to go if I don't want to go.
Right.
So only 40% of those students take that course. Now, and just think about this. If we could financially educate every student in high school, number one, it would the impact is lower credit scores, higher student loan debt because they don't understand what their signature is doing on that student loan. They're less likely to save money, and then they're also less likely to budget because they don't know how to spend their money. Now, some would say, is it intentional? And I talked about the system, the government, and because if I've had situations where I've approached the school to offer the education, which is free, but there's a lot of red tape that you have to go through to get that implemented. So someone said, well, is it intentional? We don't think it's intentional because through data, 90% of teachers want to educate their students on how money works. There's a lot of situations they're not allowed to do so in their classroom, which in my mind, doesn't seem very, very right. So challenge number one is less than 50% of teachers feel confident in teaching how money works? Because typically, most teachers don't know. They don't know about investing or risk or taxes.
Mhm.
That's the first challenge. The second challenge is personal financial classes do not receive funding. And so we know, like with the pandemic, you have ESSER funds, you have, all these buckets of money that were passed down through the government because of the pandemic,
Mhm.
because now they're trying to solve a dire situation of students being so far behind,
Right.
right? So I wanted to put that on your brain because now I want to ask you these questions. And I ask every guest the same 4 questions. So the first
Gotcha.
question to you is, where did you learn about money?
I learned about money after college.
So would you say it was life experience or?
It was life experience. Yes, life experience. And the reason why I say that is because credit card, applications started to roll in college, and you receive your credit card and you're making decisions. And when you graduate, it's like, oh, what's going on here? And there you go. So, yeah.
Okay, good. So from our perspective, there's a few different ways you can learn about money. It could either be your parents, it could be your job, your
Mhm.
employer, or it could be school. Who do you think is more responsible or because it could be more than one. But
Mhm.
from your perspective, who do you think holds the most weight to teach their children about how money works?
Your parents.
Parents? Okay,
Mhm.
good. Now, why do you think you didn't have those conversations with your parents?
I believe that my parent was not knowledgeable regarding the importance of that. So obviously, I was a uh, just transferred down to me, generation to generation type of situation. So yeah, I would say that.
Absolutely. So, what do you think your biggest money lesson has been so far in life?
Number one, to save. It's number one. Number two, to be very strategic with my budgeting, and be careful with credit cards. That's yeah, that's been my lesson. Yeah.
I've said to myself, I'm going to do this. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to count because when you go to the mailbox,
Hmm.
I get probably a couple a week. And I said that I was going to do like a 30-day challenge and save every credit card offer that I get for 30 days to see how many I get.
Oh wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that is part of the trap, if you will, is that's how they get you, is they continue to, it's subliminal
Yep.
because when that day comes, when you do need that money,
Hmm.
I'm going to go ahead and sign an application and give me that credit card and do what I need to do, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Now, if you could, how old are you? How young are you?
I am 39.
Okay. If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self,
Mm.
what would you say to your 18-year-old self about money?
Oh, I will say, well, I had this ambition to save as a youth, right? That's all I want to do. I want to make money and save. But to be honest with you, my 18-year-old self, I will first start with college choices, right? And looking at student debt afterwards, and kind of, guide my 18-year-old self in the discussion around, are you trying to chase a school because of the school, or are you just trying to, chase a diploma? And sometimes, especially in the Black community, if we're not an athlete in some cases, we chase the school itself. So we're paying for the school. And at the end of the day, the job just want the job or career that you get into just want the credentials, the license, and things of that nature. So I would have talked to myself differently and would have chosen a different college. No offense to where I graduated from, though. That can impact me positively right now as we speak.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us about your event on the 24th. There's an event going on the 24th. Let's talk about that for a little bit. And,
Mhm.
people can attend if they can, because it's virtual, correct?
Yes, it's a virtual event. If people can go to my website, it's laruemfitch.com. This is an administrator's virtual workshop for a lot of educators out there looking to become a principal or assistant principal, instructional coach. I begin a lot of feedback from some of my teacher capacity workshops around. I didn't get the job as a principal, or what can I do? What are they looking for? And I know from my experience, I was an administrator for 5 years. I can speak on that. And I just want to, definitely provide support, strategies around some of the teacher competencies that deal with professional learning processes, being a professional, engaging all stakeholders, having an inspiring shared vision, focusing on data driven instruction. It's the way that you have to answer these questions when you go into the interview, and some of the skill set that you have to have. There's a different lens. If you're going for an assistant principal position, you have to understand that lens. And then when you're looking at a building principal, you have to understand the holistic lens, not just classroom and teacher, but community members, parents, families, all the way from custodians to cooks, every single thing, because ultimately it comes back on you. So I want to provide strategies and just have this conversation with our educators out there that are looking for those principal positions. And then understanding this last caveat to that, just understanding that you get into this field of administration, ensure that you're not getting into it as a title chasing opportunity, but making sure that you understand that it's all about capacity and you can foresee yourself as a leader, because not everybody can be a principal or a leader. We can get the title, but so we have to always come to that realization when it comes to those hard, tough conversations. But I look forward to having that conversation at Sunday, July 24th, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, the website is my name, LARUEM Fitch, FITCH.com. You can purchase your ticket there to attend the virtual workshop.
Yeah, actually, I'll put that on my page as well.
Appreciate
and I want
it.
to say hello to Darius Still. He's checking us out as well. So what's up, Darius? Hope you're having a great Saturday. So is there anything else that you want to touch on? Because this is your moment to give your shout out, your piece, whatever you want to do to the people that are watching.
Yes. Well, I want to first and foremost thank you so much, Michael, for this space here and your time this afternoon. I just want to leave the audience with a message, and the message is just making sure that we understand the importance of everything that was talked about today, from why I got into the field of education, how we need to inspire, and how we can build a pipeline to get more Black men involved to kind of shatter that 2% paradigm that's out there. And then also financial literacy, just making sure that we understand the importance of that. We don't talk about that in the Black community a lot. We need to make sure that we talk about that. And that conversation about financial literacy is a responsibility of our parents. So as a parent here of 3 boys, I make sure that, I have that conversation with them about the importance of financial literacy moving forward. And I just want everybody to do their best when it comes to just inspiring each other out there. I live a very positive life, and whatever assistance I can be out there, I'm sure that you're going to link my page. For a lot of our educators out there, please make sure that you send me a message or email me.
Well, my brother, I thank you very much for your time. Word for word, thanks you. Aisha Saxton, Darius Still, appreciate you checking us out.
Appreciate it.
And my brother, anything you need, you let me know. I got you, all right?
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great Saturday.
You too. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.